This video will contain spoilers. Before I actually get into the reviews, just a couple of life updates. I've actually started work now. I did my training from Tuesday to Thursday, and this is currently Sunday. I worked my first shift on Friday. I won't get into it because I'm not going to do like work videos unless something happens that is worth talking about. But what happened was that on the first day of training, I was paid from Universal Credit, and first thing I bought was renting Mad Max 2. I watched that, finished it on the Wednesday, rented Mad Max 3, started it on Thursday, finished it on Friday, and then rented Mad Max 4, started it Friday, finished it today. And it wasn't until like maybe halfway through Mad Max 3 that I forgot to do the review for Mad Max 2. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just watch all of them and then do one big video, which is probably for the best, so I can do comparisons and shit. Anyway, The Fall Guy, universally positive ratings. I watched it in cinema, directed by David Leitch. Starring Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Hannah Waddingham, Lee Majors, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Winston Duke. But I heard a while back that, like, from a guy I follow on Instagram, that he seen it early and he gave it a 5 out of 10. And he said, like, he appreciates the idea and all that. David Leitch, great director. Because, I mean, come on. John Wick, Bullet Train, Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde. Plus, he was a stunt double. It seems like he'd be the perfect man for this. And the whole thing of it is it's a parody of action films, but it ended up being just exactly the same as most other action films. I still kept my hopes up, and I did really enjoy it. Yes, it's a bit cheesy, especially with the sort of dynamic between him and Emily Blunt's character, but I don't mind. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, even if it is overused, even if it doesn't make sense. Like, it is fiction. I don't know what it is. Part of this reminds me of Roadhouse. Maybe it's just the amount of shit that happens. Because, I mean, there's a scene where he's fighting someone on, like, I don't even know what it was, but it was like something at the back of a rubbish truck. And for some reason, all I could think of watching that was the scene in Roadhouse where someone tries to kill Jake Gyllenhaal by, like, sliding their truck into him, but he ends up sort of just jumping onto the truck. Don't get me wrong. When it comes to quality and all that, this film way better than Roadhouse. For most people, Roadhouse was so bad it's good, whereas for this, it's just good for the most part, like most people would say. I think it's great. I think that they went a little too far with, like, the fact that Aaron Taylor-Johnson, like, wanted to kill Colt. I'm going to pause the video so I can try to remember why he wanted to do that, because I don't remember, because I seen this on Thursday. Yes, that's what it was. Although, even then, it still doesn't make sense. So, from, like, reading this has made me remember stuff. What happened was that Aaron Taylor-Johnson's character accidentally killed his new stunt double, because what happens is that Colt goes into a coma and is out of the business for a year and a half, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson doesn't quit acting. He still keeps on doing action films, but he needs a replacement stuntman. He accidentally kills that replacement stuntman, and tries to frame Colt by using deepfake technology and all that. That's why he goes out of retirement. Uh, but I don't. He also reveals that like he sort of engineered Colt's accident in the first place, but I don't remember why that happened. I don't think they gave an explanation, and it me. It makes no sense because I mean, this guy is just a fucking actor. Like, I get that actors, celebrities, all that, they're a bit weird, sometimes very psychotic. And I guess you could just write it off as that, but it doesn't seem right to me. Um anyway, other thing that I didn't like about it is I get that they wanted to have like a happy ending, but I think that they shouldn't have had Maelstrom be a success. Like it you can tell that this is just like a rip-off of action films, particularly Dune. And yeah, Dune is great, but looking at like Metalstorm, it doesn't look. It looks like the kind of thing that you would only watch just to make a video talking about the fact that you watched it. Um, and it. I have a feeling that this wasn't the initial plan. Like, I think Metal Storm was initially going to be a failure, and then the studio stepped in and said, "No, we want it to be a success because we want a nothing bad happens ending. You know, everything is perfect." But it just doesn't sit right with me. I think that's all I have to say. I get that Colt is a stuntman, but the amount of hits is like he fucking gets hit by a car in one scene, and yet he's wearing like a mouth guard. But the fact that he goes through the entire film and the most he has is a couple of cuts and scrapes, like even though he is a stuntman, it makes no sense. It shouldn't be like that. Either make him more injured and write something about that into the script. Like don't just make it we'll apply even more makeup. Like actually write that these broken limbs and shit like that, or just take those things out of the film. Because it's not really detracting from it to have like a couple of the things removed. If anything, I think it improves it because it just makes it seem more realistic. And I get it. I know it doesn't need to be realistic, but it should be at least somewhat believable. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, universally positive ratings, directed by I think his name is Wes Ball. We're just going to assume that that's his name. Watching it in the cinema, starring Freya Allen, William H. Macy, and they're probably the only two names I recognize. Yep. We watched the Caesar trilogy, which is what I'm going to call it from now on. It's in sort of like preparation for this. Never seen any of the POTA films before, and watch trilogy, fucking love it. Really excited for this. It was a massive disappointment. I When I was doing training, I had to get a train because I was going to Belfast, and on Thursday, I was looking at the trivia section on IMDb for War, and because I'm searching a Planet of the Apes, the first thing that pops up is Kingdom, and I see that the rating when I was going up was 8 out of 10. And then the next time I looked at it was 6 out of 10. And the next time it was, or not 6, 7.6. Then it was 7.4. Then it was 7.6. And now it's 7.3. And Rotten Tomatoes is 81. It does not deserve those. It is a 7 at best. Like, this is the X-Men apocalypse of the Porta films, at least the Caesar trilogy. So, this takes place many generations after Caesar's death. We don't actually know how long it takes place. It just says many generations. And I thought that they were going to sort of lead up into the original series, which is why, they had it so that the virus mutated into causing muteness instead of just outright killing. But they retcon that in this, I guess, because Freya Allen and William H. Macy are able to speak. They're the only humans in this, by the way. And now I could be getting this wrong. I have a feeling that what I'm about to say isn't actually what happened. And something about me was fucked up watching it last night, and I ended up mishearing a lot of things. But I swear Freya Allen's character said that there was a book inside this vault, and I'll get more into the vault later, but when you read the book, it causes the muteness, and she wants that. And then when they get into the vault, it ends up being like a sort of, I don't know, a motherboard, I guess. I don't know computers. And they use that to sort of transmit around the world. This is the humans speaking. Is anyone still alive? The villain absolutely sucks. Although there is something quite good that they did about this, that it sort of makes fun of other bad sequels like Alien Resurrection, because the bad guy calls himself Caesar, but they outright say in the film, this guy can not be any further from Caesar. And it just, when I heard them say that, it reminded me of like Ripley from Alien Resurrection, and really just any time that a character in something has been either recast or changed in some way that is so different from the original that it can no longer be considered the same character. So I wouldn't consider that part of it bad, but overall the villain was just bad. His MacGuffin is that he wants inside the vault because he heard that when the humans were the dominant species, they had the ability to fly and stuff like that, and he wanted all that. But I mean, I guess that it can be explained because it's been many generations, but if you look at the Caesar trilogy, obviously they know about shit like planes. They just didn't want anything to do with it. It didn't matter to them. What changed? I get that all of the apes have their individuality, and maybe that was the purpose of this, but it just didn't sit right with me. Like, I felt like in the Caesar trilogy that they wanted to separate themselves from humans. They didn't want to be just humans that, before evolution, they wanted individuality, they wanted to be traditional. So that means in the forest, being hunter-gatherers. There's some good things about it. Like, overall, I would say it was an okay film. The start of it, where the main character and two of his friends went to go get some bird eggs, and he has to like climb up a bit to get them, and he slips and he lands on to a rock, and the rock starts slipping. It reminded me of Uncharted, and it was amazing. Like, if that's all the film was, I think I would have actually enjoyed it. Like, more than I did. William H. Macy, no idea he was going to be in this. Massive surprise. But he didn't really do much. He just sort of appeared and was like, don't focus on the past, focus on the present. And then he was just sort of, he's kind of like Uncle Ruckus. He went, like, when Freya Allen, the main character, I think his name is like Noah, and his two friends, they went to go into the vault sneakily. William H. Macy was about to tie on them. And it's just, I fucking love William H. Macy because I fucking love Shameless, and it's just, they wasted his talents, which is massive, like, missed opportunity. I think that's all there is to say. There's like something about the future of the series that I want to say. If they continued the story of Noah, like, if we had the choice of no more Planet of the Apes films, at least not for a while, a sequel focusing on Noah, or a sequel focusing on new characters, I'd rather have new characters, but I wouldn't mind a Noah sequel as long as it's good. Like, I didn't mind the character of Noah. It's just, it's impossible for them to have someone as good or better than Caesar. Mad Max 2, also known as The Road Warrior, universally positive ratings, directed by George Miller. I watched it on YouTube. Mel Gibson, that's probably the only name I recognize. Yeah. I'd seen part of the first one years ago, and I just couldn't get into it. I thought it was very, very boring. And for a while, I thought, oh, maybe this like Lord of the Rings, where the action picks up in the second one. And I was right. This one is pretty good. I would say it's overrated, but it was enjoyable. I don't even know where I was going there. Just it is enjoyable. I, th- I don't know what to say here because I want to compare it to the rest, but like I feel like I'm best off not comparing it until when I review 3, I'll compare 3 to 2, and then review 4, I'll compare 4 to 3 and 2. But it's kind of hard to compare 1 to 2 because I've already said everything that there is to say. It's good. It's just overrated. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, mixed ratings, directed by George Miller. I watched it on YouTube. Mel Gibson, Tina Turner, they're probably the only names I recognize. The film is underrated. I think 30-year difference between this and Fury Road, and when Fury Road came out, it was, people praised it because it was most like 2, and people considered 2 the best because 1, fucking boring. 2 is action-packed chase thriller, I guess you could call it, although there's not much of a chase in it. It's really just the end. I don't get why, like, Nostalgia Critic and all that said that it was a chase film. Hour and a half in the last maybe 10-15 minutes is a chase. I wouldn't really consider a chase film, but anyway. People didn't seem to like this because instead of it being more action-packed, it was more world-building, but that's what I didn't mind. I thought it was great. Like, the world-building and everything. I didn't mind, like, the second one did have a bit of world building because of like the costuming and just how the gang he's up against in it are kind of feral. But with this, they went full out with the world building. especially with like Tina Turner's camp and all that. They also really set up Max's character because he didn't kill Blaster, because Blaster is a retard. So that's, I get why people didn't like it, but it's just, the world building is great. Um, Even though there's not nowhere near as much action, it's still, it did keep me quite entertained. I think the only problem I have with it is there's a scene towards the end where the kids are helping Max defeat some bad guys, and they play this like sort of uplifting music like they would in like a Peter Pan film, and I feel like if they removed that music and either had no music or a different score, it would have been much better, because it just makes it seem like some sort of cheesy kids like fantasy film. Um, like the best way I compare it to is like Peter Pan or some sort of pirate film, is what makes it seem like. All they need to do is remove that, and it'd be much better. Mad Max Fury Road. Universally positive rating, strict like George Miller. I watched it on Amazon Prime. The reason why, right, I would prefer to watch all of them on Prime because I don't want to give YouTube like money, but it's a lot faster to rent shit on YouTube, because with YouTube you just go on and rent it. With Amazon you have to like press a button, they'll send you an email, then you have to go onto the Amazon website and then rent it. And the only reason why I didn't rent it on YouTube for this one is because I couldn't find the original. I could only get the black and white edition, and I'd prefer to at least watch the color version first, and then maybe I'll watch the black and white version later. But I mean, it's just gonna be a black and white version. Yeah, I know it calls it like silver and chrome, but it's just black and white. It's not really adding much. Technically, it's taking things away. And in all honesty, it's it's one of those things where they just re-release it in black and white because they think it's better than it really is. Anyway, I should have waited till I'd done the cast. Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, Nicholas Hoult, Zoe Kravitz. That's probably it. Yeah. Pretty good film. Best in the series? Yes, I would say. I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to compare all of them to each other. Tom Hardy's performance, I'm not a fan of. I feel like, well, his performance is nothing wrong with it, but it's just the character doesn't seem like Max. There was a theory going around that this version of Max is actually the feral child from Mad Max 2, but they released a comic that explained that it's the same as Mel Gibson's Max, and I feel like based on how Max acts in this, and also based on what they say in the Furiosa trailer, it makes much more sense for this to be the feral child instead of Mel Gibson Max. Because, well, explain the Furiosa trailer. And they say in the Furiosa trailer that basically either the story of Furiosa or the story of Fury Road takes place 45 years after the apocalypse starts. Max was in his 20s when the apocalypse started. Like, Max was in his 20s when the first film came out, when just Mad Max 2 took place 5 years after the first one, and then Thunderdome took place 15 years after Road Warrior. I don't think they explained the time difference between 3 and 4, but if Charlize Theron is 40 doing Fury Road, and Furiosa, which is a prequel, it takes place like 10, 20 years earlier, it takes place 45 years after the start of the apocalypse. And even then, It could be the. I think like it's for she's a child 45 years into the apocalypse. But that makes no sense because you know Max was in his 20s when the apocalypse started, and him and Furious are roughly the same age, so it doesn't make any sense for Max to be like if this is if Furious is a child 45 years into the apocalypse, Max has to be in like his 80s by the time Fury Road comes out. Anyway, when it comes to just Max and Fury Road, just he doesn't seem like Mel Gibson. Like Mel Gibson, Max doesn't have a lot of facial expressions, and that's not saying that Mel Gibson's a bad actor. He isn't. I think that was the intent. But they just sort of made him more human in this, and it's even really subtle things. He talks a lot more. He interacts people a lot more. Like I feel like if this were a Mel Gibson Max film, for example, the scene where the pregnant woman like nearly falls out of the car. In this, Max looks at her and gives her a thumbs up. I feel like if it were Mel Gibson, he would have just give her a glance and that would have been it. And that's why it doesn't feel like it's the Max. But overall, it is a good film. Here's where I'm going to get into the comparisons because I had seen Nostalgia Critics video maybe a year after it came out, and I knew nothing of the series at the time, but now that I've seen all of them, for the most part, I can talk about some of the things that he says in that, because he, there's some things I agree with, some things I disagree with. For example, he says that the film, and well, at the time he made the video, had 96% Rotten Tomatoes, it's now 97. That makes it better than things like Fargo, Jurassic Park, any Star Wars film, Terminator 2, stuff like that. And yes, it is better than some of those things, but just it doesn't deserve to be a 96. Like, it is really good, it's just not that good. He said that he thinks Thunderdome's best. And he makes a lot of good points, and I do agree with him on those points. He talks about, like, men's rights activists hating on the film because Max takes orders from a woman. But as Doug points out in the video, I'm going to take a drink of water. Doug says that, he takes orders from Tina Turner and Thunderdome. I'm going to take that a step further. I would say that the character of Max, he is a lone wanderer who, if he runs into someone needing help, he will help them. Just, he would like some sort of reward, even if it's something as simple as just some food and water. In the case of 2, he needed gas. In 3, he needed food. And in this, he just needed to escape from something Joe. Like Imperium Joe? Immortan Joe? Okay. So, him taking orders from a woman, whatever. I wasn't there at the time, so I don't know if that's true, that, like, there were people saying all that shit. I'm going to give Doug the benefit of the doubt and say that did actually happen. Those people are fucking retards, and they do not understand. Now, I get they've been fans of the films for years, whereas I'm only gotten to it in the past week. But based on what I've seen in a short amount of time, I can say with confidence that I know the character of Max. And it makes sense for him to be taking orders from Furiosa. There was a bit where they talk about, like, there's no memorable lines from the second film, and there's a bunch from the third film, and they talk about Master Blaster, which I wouldn't call that a memorable line, really. That's just 2 characters. Raggedy Man, which I swear that they only say that one time in the film, like at the very, very end where Tina Turner smacks that. Even then, I feel like it's nothing. And then 2 men enter, 1 man leave. I feel like that is a great line. And then with this, we have the What a Lovely Day, which, yeah, I quite like. Um, I have nothing else to say there, actually. Just, I like that line. So, overall, I think all the films, well, like 2 and 4, are overrated but good. And then Thunderdome is underrated. Um, like, they're all 7.5s.